I'm joined now by the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt. Good to talk to you this morning, Mr Hunt. If you don't have a child on the way or a pension pot over £1 million, what's in this budget for you?
Well, good morning, Jane. A great deal, because we introduced help for people struggling with cost of living pressures that amount to £3,300 for the typical household over this year and last year. We've extended the energy price guarantee at £2,500 for another 3 months. We've frozen fuel duty, which will keep the cost of petrol down. And what we are doing is we're helping people through a very, very difficult period. But we're also tackling, as you mentioned just then, the long-term issues facing the economy, which is that we have 1 million vacancies up and down the country. And we want to remove the barriers that stop people from working. And the biggest area of concern for us is the NHS, where doctors have been retiring early. That's meaning that we have these long waiting lists, 7 million people on the waiting list. And so we've announced measures that will tackle those head on.
But is persuading consultants who are on over £100,000 really the problem? Isn't it fundamentally the problem that we need more nurses?
Well, we need more nurses, and we are recruiting many more nurses into the NHS. But yes, I think if you can talk to anyone in the NHS, they will say doctors leaving the workforce because of pension rules is a big problem. It's something, incidentally, that Labour advocated last September. Wes Streeting said that we should get rid of the cap on pensions, the lifetime allowance. He seems to have changed his mind overnight on that one. He said it was crazy and it would save lives to get rid of that cap. Well, he was right in September when he said that. The British Medical Association,
we're talking to Labour a little later in the programme, so we'll put those points to them. But you say you really are helping people. But after 13 years of a Conservative government, we've got teachers, doctors, transport workers all out on strike. Even your own civil servants are on strike. Analysts have said that by freezing income tax in the budget yesterday, you're effectively adding 4p to income tax for around 6 million people. That's from the OBR. People are losing money, and the OBR says it's going to get worse before it gets better. This isn't a budget for the people.
Well, we had to help people in the pandemic. We spent £400 billion helping businesses and families. We're spending nearly £100 billion helping families with cost of living pressures because of the energy crisis. We have to be honest with people. That has an impact on our accounts. We'll always be responsible with people's money. And we want to help people through a difficult period. But we want to go on the path to lower taxes as Conservatives. One of the things that's happened in the last year, for the first time ever in this country, you can earn £1,000 a month without paying a penny of tax or national insurance. So Conservatives will always bring taxes down when we can. But when people are going through difficult periods, as they are now with these huge increases in energy bills, of course we want to help people.
But you've only got 18 months to bring in these tax cuts, of which we've not seen any in this budget. I mean, is it enough to catch up Labour before the next election? They're some 20 points ahead. Are you not concerned that in 18 months' time, the narratives of the Conservatives crashing the economy is still going to be at the front of everyone's mind? This isn't bold enough.
Well, I think if you look at the measures I announced yesterday, which are removing the barriers for thousands, hundreds of thousands of parents who are struggling to get back to work because of childcare. They will cut in childcare costs. That's nearly 60%. I think the one thing people wouldn't say, Jane, is that it's not bold in terms of its ambition. We want to remove the barriers that stop people who want to from working. By the way, there's a huge package in there for long-term sick and disabled, because we think with the potential of working from home, Zoom, Teams, the idea that because you have a disability means you shouldn't be able to work or you can't work, we think that's very outdated, and we're going to get rid of the work capability assessment and give people support to help them get back into work. So this is, I think, a budget that helps businesses fill their vacancies. Sorry, carry on.
It's just about the speed. It's just not fast enough, is it? I mean, the childcare plans, you know, if you've got a 9-month-old baby, you're not going to benefit from these because your baby will be 3 or 4 by the time it kicks in. Or if you have a 3-year-old baby, it'll be 5 by the time it kicks in. In fact, it's only people who are thinking about getting pregnant now who are going to benefit from this. It's not going to have kicked in by the next election. And it's going to take 3 years to organise wraparound childcare for schools. Why on earth does it take so long to sort out kids' clubs?
Well, this is the biggest transformation in childcare in my lifetime, Jane. It's a huge change, and we're going to need thousands more nurseries, thousands more schools offering provision they don't currently offer, thousands more childminders. We are going as fast as we can get the supply in the market to expand. But it's the right thing to do because we have one of the most expensive childcare systems in the world. And we know that it's something that's a huge worry for women in particular, that they have this cliff edge when maternity leave ends after 9 months, no help until the child turns 3, and that can often be career ending. So I think it's the right thing to do for many, many women to introduce these reforms, and we are introducing them as quickly as we can because we want to remove those barriers to work. By the way, that's also very good for business, which is why yesterday's measures were welcomed by the main business organisations like the CBI. They've been saying for some time now that childcare is causing a big problem for businesses who are losing staff when they really need them the most.
But analysts have also said, yes, it's great that business is having investment, but one thing that you didn't mention yesterday was public sector pay. And you need to invest in business, but you also need to invest in the public sector. Why do you not think these two things run side by side?
Well, they do. And that's why in the autumn statement we announced an £8 billion package for the NHS and social care system, a £3 billion package for our schools. Those pay negotiations are happening now. I think they seem to be making encouraging progress. We'll wait for news, but we want to solve them as quickly as we can, and that's why we're having those discussions.
You made it really clear that yesterday's budget was all about getting people back to work. Why do you think fewer people came back to work in the UK after COVID than they did in Europe and the rest of the world? And we have so many people on long-term sick. Why do you think this is? Has the UK got a particular problem with laziness?
I don't think that at all. I think people in this country work extremely hard. But and if you look at what's happened over the last 13 years since we've been in power, unemployment has halved. We have 2 million more disabled people in work. We have an employment level at 76% that's fairly normal for advanced economies. But if we had the employment levels they have in Holland, for example, we would have 2.7 million more people in work. So we could fill every vacancy nearly 3 times over. And that's why we recognise when we want to boost growth, to generate more tax revenues for our NHS and our schools, that we need to remove the barriers that stop, for example, young parents from going back to work when they have children.
Do we need more immigration? The OBR has pointed out that 250,000 people are expected to come to the UK this year. Do you think that fundamentally is something we need to be focusing on?
Well, I think the decision of the British people in the Brexit referendum was that we want an economic model that does not depend on unlimited low-skilled migration. And
do you think
that's why yesterday I set about... Well, that's why I want to change that. And that's why yesterday I set about systematically removing the barriers, not just young parents worried about childcare costs, but job seekers, older people, long-term sick and disabled, those 4 groups of people where there are lots of people who face barriers to work, and we want to take away those barriers so that we don't have an economy that is dependent on unlimited migration.
OK, one final question before I let you go, because I know you've got lots of other interviews to do. Credit Suisse, how concerned should we be about what is happening there? Are you worried about contagion in British banks?
Well, as you know, Jane, Chancellors never comment on what's happening in the markets. Obviously, I'm following the situation. The Governor of the Bank of England is following it very closely. I think the news we've heard from the Swiss authorities this morning is encouraging, but I won't say any more than that.
Jeremy Hunt, very good of you to talk to us. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.